Let's go to this caller right here, a theist caller by the name of Jasmine. She, her, located to the north in Canada. And the question is, should doctors be required to use the preferred pronouns of their patients? You are on the air with student Dr. Ben and Johnny P. How are you doing?
Good, thank you, and thank you for having me. Yeah, so there is actually a specific case I want to discuss. I know your audience probably hasn't heard, but there's a UK doctor by the name of Dr. Macaret, I believe, and he refused to use the proper pronouns for, I guess, one of his patients, and has suffered job loss and has going through the UK courts. And he's very much sticking to his guns, saying Genesis 1:27. I don't know the exact quote. It's like God created him and her, she and male and female, this kind of thing.
Sure.
And they're still currently fighting it, and that's the case I'd like to discuss.
Okay. Ben?
Yeah, this is an interesting issue. So can I ask what position do you take on this? Do you think that this doctor is correct, or do you disagree with them?
Oh, no, very, very, very incorrect.
Okay, because that's...
But I think people think he would have a case. Some people think he has a case.
Right, so I do not think that he would have a case because, I mean, pronouns, going along with your name, it's something that you really choose for yourself or your parents choose for you. And it's kind of, if you took someone's name and let's say someone was seeing me as their physician and they said, my name is Stephen, and I decided I'm going to call you Daniel. Even if I want to call them Daniel, their name is Stephen. So, and that's not something that I have control over. And I think it's a bit silly that a physician would be willing to compromise that doctor-patient relationship and, the rapport that you have to build with your patients as their physician and just say, yeah, no, I want to be difficult and argue with you about your name and your pronouns when really that's not the focus at all of this relationship. So, I mean, honestly, if I had a physician that refused to use my correct pronouns, I mean, I don't think I want them as my doctor. So, I mean, but I don't know much about the legal side of this, but as the medical side, I think that's my take on it. But Johnny might have more of a legal perspective on it.
Yeah, I guess requirement suggests, well, there's several requirements. There's, I guess, a moral requirement. There's probably an economic requirement if this doctor wants to remain in business and wants to be open to people who would be offended by that. This doctor might want to stop that kind of behavior. And that's Canada, or that's the UK, I believe. I don't know much about UK.
Yeah, it's the UK.
Yeah, I don't know anything about UK law. I know it exists, but I can tell you this. Title 22, Part 9, Chapter 190, Subchapter B, Rule 190.8 of the Texas Administrative Code. That would seem to me a practice inconsistent with public health and welfare. Failure to practice in an acceptable professional manner consistent with public health and welfare within the meaning of the Act includes, but not limited to, failure to treat a patient according to the generally accepted standard of care. And I'm scrolling down this page, and there's a whole bunch of stuff, but I can tell you I know that part of it is being disruptive, any kind of behavior that might somehow interfere with that patient's receiving medical care according to the generally accepted standard of care. And if that doctor tried pulling that jazz in Texas and there was a complaint about it, that doctor could potentially receive, continuing medical education courses on client-patient communication. But it's Texas, so maybe that wouldn't happen. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that, I guess. I think it's reprehensible, and I really don't give. We're 2 minutes in. I don't give a flying fuck about what Genesis says any more than I care about what Morgoth says about left-handed people. So, I think if a doctor is doing something in a clinical environment, they need to set aside their hocus pocus beliefs, and do doctor stuff according to the doctor's standard of care. And then they can go to church and they can sing to snakes or whatever it is they do, or bang on a hammer for Thor. I don't care. But I'm guessing that the darlings of the right over in the UK think that he's just the cat's pajamas. What are you seeing the response to this doctor's actions, if you're reading it in the news? Jasmine?
The response, again, mixed. Like, there are a lot of people against him, but there are definitely Christian organizations and several other organizations that are in support of him. Although there are Christians and theologians that have argued against him, but
Yeah.
he does have his it seems it does have a base of support.
I went to the
Doctor.
Go ahead, please.
No, go on.
No, please. I want to hear from you.
Okay. Dr. Ben, do you think he could be professionally salvaged?
Like, what do you mean
If
by
you
that?
understand what I'm saying.
Can you clarify?
Well, do you think he could be re-educated? Do you think if he decides to start using appropriate pronouns in this and decides that he was wrong, do you think he would be suitable to return to practice?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think sometimes it takes time for people, and oftentimes if he can learn that what he was doing was inappropriate and unprofessional, then sure, I would be happy letting him back into practice. But and even if he kept his viewpoint that he didn't agree, and it's such a weird thing to say whether or not they agree with somebody's identity, but even if he kept his religious views on that, but then put those aside and was able to practice medicine in a way that was supporting the patient, then that's fine. And I think we do this in other areas of medicine too. It's not just within this gender conversation. We have these conversations in medical school about how do you talk to somebody about death, because people have their own backgrounds and upbringings of do they believe in an afterlife or do they not? And you just never know with people. So we're taught to not bring that at all into the room. Leave it as clinical as possible, and then they can interpret that however they're going to with their backgrounds. But it is not our place to insert any religion at all into that conversation. So if he could set up that boundary for himself, that's fine. That's fine with me.
Yeah, and doctors are human beings, and sometimes they are. I mean, they're subject to the same forces, the same. I mean, allegedly they're human beings. I know lawyers are too. I
don't know. I question it sometimes.
Yeah, but we expect so much more out of doctors because we trust them with our lives, not just our life and death lives, but the quality of our lives as we go forward. And so there seems to be a special emphasis with rehabilitating doctors like that. Now, again, I don't know about doctors. I know lawyers, from my experience, tend to, this is anecdotal, but I haven't looked at any stats, tend to be more progressive. I don't know about doctors. I think they might be all over the place.
They are. I think a lot more now are progressive, and I'm seeing even a lot of the more religious physicians are willing to keep that personal.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to, if you would send an email to tv@atheist-community.org, there it is, attention JPA, with a link to coverage of this doctor. I would love to discuss this on the flagship show of the Atheist Community of Austin, the nonprofits. So I know that's the kind of stuff that we look into, and I think our panel, whoever it might be that week, would have a lot of interesting things to say. And I do thank you for calling in.